whether it's 2 first-round draft picks or not. We talked in a previous show about how, Burns is going to be expensive. You got to re-sign him. However, this new report from CBS Sports and ESPN talks about another star pass rusher who could be on the move, and one that might make more sense for Philadelphia. What's up, guys? Thomas Mott here. Welcome to the Thomas Mott Show on a Monday. The Eagles' bye week is over, and yet the trade drama regarding pass rushers continues to get crazier and crazier. I want to jump into a better alternative to Brian Burns if you're not trying to spend 2 first-round draft picks. We talked about Brian Burns over the past couple of days, and it's a big-time storyline in Philadelphia world. However, there's another pass rusher reportedly on the trade block, Bradley Chubb from the Denver Broncos, why he makes more sense for Philadelphia coming up here on the Thomas Mott Show. And then we'll get into some of the games from yesterday in our national story of the day. The NFC keeps getting worse and worse and worse. Brady Rodgers losing, the Niners lost again. It's tough time to not be an Eagle fan right now in the NFC. The bye week is over. Let's jump into everything that's going on today with the Eagles and beyond. So there's this whole idea of the Eagles being interested in trading for a pass rusher and being tied to Brian Burns. And you see the article on your screen here from yesterday from NewJersey.com, actually this morning from NJ.com, talking about how the Eagles are among teams interested in trading for a Pro Bowl pass rusher. And there's some interesting stuff here from Jeremy Fowler talking about who Philadelphia is calling around for, if they're looking for just one pass rusher in Burns or somebody else, and that'll tie us into the Bradley Chubb news here as I connect all of the dots. Here's Fowler, quote, "Brian Burns is a player teams are trying to get. The Panthers are telling teams no, that we're probably done. We made some moves. We want to keep our core foundational pieces like wide receiver DJ Moore and Burns. I've told teams like the LA Rams, who barely have a first-round pick. They're trying to get Brian Burns. The Chiefs and Eagles are calling around." Now, that's focused in on Brian Burns, but the calling around side of things shows you that Philadelphia is calling around the National Football League, not just around the Carolina Panthers. Also, this idea that Brian Burns would take 2 first-round draft picks, if that's really the case, then why are the Rams in the running? Because they barely, according to Fowler and according to everyone else who knows the Rams draft picks, have a first-round pick. And so maybe Burns is not going to cost you 2 first-round draft picks, but if he is, then maybe you go for somebody else. One more quick thing here from Adam Schefter. Quote, "One team offered 2 first-round picks to the Panthers for Burns. League source told ESPN. The Panthers told that team, however, they are not trading Burns, who's in the middle of his 4th NFL season on a deal that pays him $2.34 million in base salary." Let me just comment on that for a second. If a team really did offer 2 first-round draft picks for Brian Burns, the Panthers would have accepted it. And I know they want to keep their core players, and Burns is an important piece that we have right now. There's no way in hell they would have turned down 2 first-round draft picks, because you're not going to get a better offer than that. That tells me the whole idea of 2 first for Brian Burns might not be truth. It might be more teams putting out smoke and letting Adam Schefter run with it in order to go ahead and maybe drive up the asking price of Brian Burns. So either way, right? Whether it's 2 first-round draft picks or not, we talked in a previous show about how, Burns is going to be expensive. You got to re-sign him. However, this new report from CBS Sports and ESPN talks about another star pass rusher who could be on the move, and one that might make more sense for Philadelphia. Just hear me out on this. So here's the CBS Sports article by Jared Dubbin, quote, "Broncos have received trade offers for Bradley Chubb, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler per report, and they might receive more this week just because they lost to the Jets, and their season without Russell Wilson now, and being with Russell Wilson, is seemingly in big trouble." Here's the report, quote, "According to a report from ESPN, other teams have called Denver about edge rusher Bradley Chubb, as well as wide receiver Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler. The report notes that rival teams believe the Broncos will not sell low on any of the players and will be value shoppers if they deal at all, whatever that means. It's notable, however, that other teams are circling the situation because the Broncos have been widely expected to take a significant step forward this season. Instead, the hiring Nathaniel Hackett as a head coach looking like one of the worst moves of the offseason, with a trade for and then extension of Russell Wilson also on that list. And so teams, smartly, I would say, are looking around Denver and saying, you guys aren't going to the playoffs. Give us some of your players who are coming up on contract deals, and we'll go ahead and take them off of your hands. And I think Bradley Chubb makes a ton of sense for Philadelphia if they were to either not be able to afford Brian Burns because he's a little bit younger, or not be able to go ahead and pay, the additional salary that he would take in a brand new extension. Look at the current contract that Bradley Chubb is on right now, right? Drafted in 2018, he was paid less than $1 million each of his first 4 years. Until this year, he's making $12.76 million and then will be an unrestricted free agent. And so Denver, you can see why they want to go ahead and trade him, because they're not going to most likely re-sign him after the season is over. He'll go into free agency and sign somewhere else. And so for a win-now football team, Philadelphia could, instead of giving 2 first-round draft picks for Brian Brian Burns, give up a third-round draft pick, a fourth-round draft pick. You wouldn't give up a second or a first for Bradley Chubb. You would pay him the remainder of his contract, which Philadelphia has the cap space to do that. We talked about that in a show the other day. They have almost $10 million. You have him for 1 year. The remainder of this year, you try to win a Super Bowl, and then, hey, if he plays well, you can re-sign him because you're probably going to let go of Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox, meaning you're going to have plenty of money in free agency. It just makes sense if you want to go ahead and get a pass rusher for this year. I get the idea that Brian Burns is better than Bradley Chubb in terms of number-wise. You see the sack numbers here from Chubb have been widely over, up and down. 12, and then 1, and then 7.5, and then an injury last year really caused him to have no sacks, and then this year currently sitting at 5.5. Which is a big number. But I really think Philadelphia, if they want to go all in and bring in a pass rusher, you could make it a lot cheaper draft pick-wise by getting a Bradley Chubb and then still the opportunity to extend him versus if you go ahead and trade for Brian Burns, you're going to have to give up multiple firsts or close to, and then also give him an even bigger extension because he's been a better player overall than Bradley Chubb. Now, I'd rather have Burns, right? Don't get me wrong. If you're going to, put a gun to my head and say, which one would you rather pick? I'd take Brian Burns every day of the week. Nice sack of Tom Brady yesterday. But you're talking about value and being smart and making sure you're not, mortgaging away your future. You guys know I want to keep those 2 first-round draft picks next year, and you don't have to give them up if you go for Bradley Chubb. I think that makes a lot more sense than going ahead and giving up a lot more for Brian Burns. Okay, we're going to get into some other Eagles stuff here, as well as our National League story today in just 1 second. First, a quick shout-out to PointsBet, who I have an affiliate link, down below in the description box. If you're in a legal state, you can jump into the sports betting game with our friends at PointsBet. I actually am loving this bet on the Bears tonight here for Monday Night Football. If you're watching this on a Monday, Chicago is 8.5-point underdogs. 2, yes, a good Patriot defense, and I know Chicago's offense is terrible, but Mac Jones comes back, and I think there's a Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi kind of, quarterback controversy going on right now. This, to me, is a bet that you could really potentially have some very good fortune with. I would take the Bears plus 8.5 on Monday Night Football at New England. Do it with our friends at PointsBet. There's a great, sign-up offer right now. Jump into the betting game with PointsBet. That link is down below in the description box. Okay, this is a little bit old news, but I've not been able to mention it. You see Bleeding Green Nation has the article here from just a couple of days ago. Carson Wentz has been officially placed on IR and will miss the Monday Nighter on November 14th against the Philadelphia Eagles due to a fractured ring finger, according to a report from NFL insider Ian Rappaport. Right now, it looks like he's probably going to go on injured reserve. I think he has gone on IR officially, so this article is a couple of days old, meaning he will miss, obviously, the Packer game, which he did, which they won, by the way, the Colts game, the Viking game, and the Eagle game, which, by the way, is a gauntlet of games here for the Washington football team. The Colts are a mess, but defensively they're pretty good. The Vikings might be the second best team in the NFC, and then at Philadelphia, it is unfortunate he's going to miss the Monday Nighter against us. I really was hoping to see what he would do against Philadelphia. I think the Eagles would have had a sack party again, and possibly some more interceptions, and the fan base with Carson Wentz would have been a fun thing to do, but Lee will miss that game, and it is a bummer that you're going to see Taylor Heineke, who might be a better overall player because he doesn't take as many sacks as Carson Wentz does, but listen, the Commanders are their own set of issues. I know they beat the Packers yesterday, but it's not anything to go ahead and write home about because Green Bay, as you'll see at 3-4, as we'll talk about in just 1 second, is an absolute mess. Okay, plenty more stuff coming up here on the Thomas Mott Show over the next couple of days and weeks. Quickly, thumbs up to help the show grow. That is the best way to do it, as YouTube loves seeing that thumbs up button. And be sure to subscribe. Just hit 5,000 subs here on the Thomas Mott Show. Might do a little something for you guys coming up here later this week, so stay tuned for that. Be sure to subscribe. That way you do not miss it. All right, let's wrap up with our national story of the day. Always on a Monday, we look back at a Sunday of football. It's kind of fun not having to worry about the Eagles on a Sunday, but it's also really kind of boring. It's like, hey, I don't care about these other teams. I want to watch this team. I want to watch the Birds play, and so it's fun that they're going to be back next week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Couple of notes here. Bengals are seemingly very much, back to their original self. If there is one football team that can challenge right now in the AFC, the Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs, it is the Cincinnati Bengals. You saw them do it last year. I don't know if they're as good as they were last year, but they're starting to find their stride. We got to keep an eye on the injury to Jamar Chase, as he had a really, really good day yesterday. Don't think it is significant, but definitely something to go ahead and watch out for. I know Dallas won 24-6, but if you were watching that game like I was very, very closely, it was 10-6 with 4 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and the Lions turned the football over 4 times in that second half. And this was not an impressive day from Dak Prescott. And early on, the rumblings of, Dak might not be the guy were very much there. 19 of 25, 207, one pick, had a QBR of 55. I'm not saying that Dak is, worse than Cooper Rush. I would never say that. You guys know that I think if I was, if you were a Cowboy fan, you definitely want Dak to be the guy. But don't look at this and say, oh, wow, Dallas is back and flying high with Dak Prescott. Their defense played great. Their offense very much struggled until late in that football game, and that was mainly due to the fact they got a lot of turnovers that gave them plus field position into plus territory. Basically due to the fact that the Lions are very incompetent offensively. So not a very impressive win from the Dallas Cowboys. Don't let anyone tell you differently, but they're still going to be pesky and they keep winning, which is annoying. Colts and Titans does not matter. That is a completely useless division. The Packers losing to the Commanders. Maybe the Packers are bad this year. We keep waiting for the Packers, and we'll talk about the Bucks next year in a second. We keep saying, oh, it's Brady and Rodgers. They're going to be fine, right? Are they going to be fine? Because the Packer offense has been completely inept, and Brady and his offense couldn't move the football against the Panther defense. And I know that the Panthers have Brian Burns with a nice sack of Tom Brady, but this is just crazy that these two legends are struggling this much. Now, as the Pro Football Talk article I read this morning talked about, don't rule them out yet. Don't go, counting your eggs saying that they're terrible, but let's just be real. They are not as scary as they have been the past couple of years, and if you're Philadelphia, you'd take either one of those teams right now coming to the link in the divisional round of the playoffs because you would feel good about being able to beat them. Giants got so lucky against the Jaguars, man. I still can't buy into this Giants team. They're finding ways to win, and credit to them. But again, a stop at the goal line, a couple of bad penalties. Jacksonville is a mess right now in terms of not knowing how to win a football game. They will next year. They have the personnel. It's just figuring out how to win. Man, the Giants keep winning, though. It's frustrating. Browns-Ravens is not a factor. Jets-Broncos is not a factor. Texans-Raiders is not a factor. Seattle is pesky. Seattle's going to be a wild card team this year. I don't think they're going to win their division, although right now they're leading their division. But I do think it's a team you don't want to play in the playoffs. They run the football well with Kenneth Walker, and they don't really make a lot of big mistakes with Geno Smith. Their defense is pesky and kind of fun, but I think Philadelphia matches up well against them. But they are playing good football, and it's fun to root for them because of Geno being completely written off as a quarterback just as early as last year. The Chiefs blew up on the 49ers. I don't know if we take a big, look at this and say, oh, the Niners are trash. I think the Niners are still very dangerous. The Chiefs are just that good. And I think any team playing the Chiefs is going to have a very, very hard time right now. Them and the Bills are just leagues above everyone else. I think the Niners definitely have quarterback issues. I think Jimmy Garoppolo is not performing like I thought that he would, filling in for Trey Lance. I think they can only go as far as he can take them, which is, to me, not that far, this year. But they're still going to be maybe a wild card team or a team that you face in the divisional round, they come to Philadelphia, and you're going to have to at least be focused in on them because CMC does make them a lot more dangerous than they were beforehand. Finally, Pittsburgh is a team Philadelphia plays next week. We'll talk more about that later on this week, but it is worth noting their offense just can't move the football, and Kenny Pickett makes a lot of big mistakes. I think the Steelers defense played well last night. They had multiple times to pick off Tua Tagovailoa, but Philadelphia, it should be smooth sailing against Pittsburgh next week. We'll knock on wood because it's early, but it should be smooth sailing. All right, there you go. There's the latest update here on the Monday edition of the Thomas Mott Show. Plenty more content coming up this week as we try to give you guys shows to drive to and from work as you're driving into work or driving home from work. Hopefully the highway is not that packed. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. We'll see you in the next one as this is Thomas Mott, and it has been the Thomas Mott Show.